Welcome to Invisible No More, the podcast where we explore triumphs over trauma and the powerful journeys of healing and resilience. I'm your host, Shannon Huff, and together we'll shine a light on the stories of strength, hope, and the paths we forge to reclaim our lives. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Invisible No More. My name is Shannon Huff, and I'm with Meghann Trapp today. Meghann, thank you for joining us. I know you came to our conference in February, both months, and just did an amazing job in your sessions. But a lot of people don't know a lot about you. And so we invited you on and would just love to talk to you about your story and what you've done in life. And we'll kind of go from there.
Awesome. And thank you for having me. Totally honored to be here.
Yeah.
So yes, like you said, I met you all before the conference and was super blessed and honored to be there. It was such a life-changing experience. I mean, just all the people, I think just the networking, right, that came together. But and it's interesting when I share my story, because there are some people, I get it, right? We've been there where we're still so much in our pain and our trauma. It's like, how can you share your story and not get triggered by it? And to me, I'm like, yeah, there's days that we all have. We have days where we're going to be in our head and in our emotions, but sharing it also allows me to heal, also allows me to connect with you and other people like us in that sense. So I think it's, and also had that not happened, I wouldn't be here. I mean, even though, yes, I had to go through such a horrible experience, I would not be here where I'm at right now. So just totally cool all around. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'm from Colorado, grew up here, Littleton, kind of outside Denver, moved around quite a bit. My dad was Army, so, military, I was used to that. And I actually became a firefighter first before joining the Air Force. I'd been a firefighter here in Colorado. And it was funny, people always say, well, how did you decide? And I'm like, I literally just woke up one day and was like, that would be a cool job.
That is so cool.
Yeah. And it was, I'd had friends and relatives and everything. So I kind of, knew a little bit about it, but I was like, okay, what am I doing? And I had jobs. I always had really good work ethic, but I didn't have that passion for it. I didn't find something that really spoke to me and kind of aligned with me as a person. And once I became a firefighter, it was like everything, the whole, the stars aligned. It really did. And it took off even more so once I joined the Air Force. I joined in January of 2009. And I, all the things that I set out, I'm like, I'm going to travel and I'm going to, get an education and meet cool people, which I did. So my first duty station was Aviano Air Base, Italy, which was
Right.
like, how did you get that out of tech school? That's insane. And I was like, yeah, that was my first base. I lucked out. That was my first pick. And it was, it's a tough career field. When I went through academy, it's DOD. So it's all branches of the military. It's not just Air Force. And you're going up against probably at least 3,000, I think right around 3,000 students at the time. There were maybe 5 females total out of the 3,000, maybe 6. So you can imagine how hard it is already. You have a lot to go up against. You have to be physically fit. You have to be smart because you have to pass all the testing. So luckily, because I'd already been through academy, I knew pretty much what it entailed, and I excelled very well and was one of, I think my chief who pinned me at graduation was like, I think you're the first female we've seen come through here in a couple of years that actually stayed with her original class and didn't wash out due to challenges. So, and I loved it. So yeah, I got to Italy. I was all on board. I was like, sweet, sign me up. What do we do?
Italy.
It was high tempo, meaning we did a ton of exercises and drills because of our mission. It's a NATO base, so it's a lot, right? But we're in Italy. I'd hear people complain and I'm like, we're getting paid to live in Italy. It can't really get much better than that. And I fully took advantage. I traveled and met some of my best friends I still have to this day. And I got a lot of crap. I was older. I joined at 27. I turned 28 in tech school, so I was old.
Yeah, that is considered old. Wow.
And going up against guys that were 21, 22, 23. So they would be like, oh, Trapp, you're old. And I'm like, if I'm a female and I'm so old, then why am I out here kicking your butt on the firing ground, like running circles around you guys?
Right.
So my leadership.
They probably saw that as a challenge.
Oh, there were a lot of them that were very threatened by me. And I just kind of laughed because I'm like, oh well. my true my true brothers, we call brother firefighter, sister firefighter, they had my back and they were like, I would choose you over 90% of these guys any day because I know that you're going to get me out if something happens and vice versa. So I truly loved my job. I was very passionate about it. And had a phenomenal career. After I left Italy, I went to Shaw Air Force Base, which is in South Carolina. So not super exciting for me. Sumter is different. It's like middle of nowhere. There's not a lot to
Oh, I
do.
know.
I was like, what on earth have you done? That was my
We
price.
were at Jackson, so I
What's
know
that?
Columbia
Oh yeah,
area.
yeah,
Yeah.
Fort Jackson. Yeah. So I was like, well, I guess that's my punishment for getting Italy, I guess, to South Carolina. It was different. It was challenging, all new base, and I thought, okay, this is my place to start over. I'm getting a reset button after 2 years, new environment, and found out shortly after I got there that I was Military Firefighter of the Year. I got the award, which is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's a peer nominated award, so my peers put me in for it. Being the only female in my department and the lowest ranking at the time of that, I was blown away. I was blown away. Me being, I'd been at my new base like a month and I was super excited about it. And of course, the first thing some of the guys said was, well, what'd you do to get that award? And it was like, here we go. Right. It was very discouraging. And it's like, I work probably twice as hard at my job because I am a female in the fire department.
Right. Right.
So it just really started to wear me down. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing next? So I was ready to get out of there. My 4-year contract was up super quick. And my first sergeant was furious with me when I told him I was leaving. And he was like, you're gonna put on NCO, you could be a staff sergeant. I'm like, I don't want to stay here. I don't want to put up with this crap. I mean, this is why women leave this place, because of how we're treated. So I re-enlisted in the Guard, went to North Carolina, and which was a huge, that I feel like that was where I was meant to be anyway. I've gone back and forth between North Carolina several times in my life, or since then. But I re-enlisted in their Guard unit and actually went to air evac. So I retrained as an air medical evacuation technician on the C-130s, which was really cool. And that wasn't by choice. They did not have any firefighter slots at the time. So that's where I ended up, and equally fell in love with the medical side of things as much as firefighting, and had just a phenomenal unit in North Carolina. And then 2014, I moved back home to Colorado. I just thought, I'm missing out. I've missed out on so much with my family, my nieces and nephews, my sisters, everybody's home. Anyone who's in the military knows, between all the deployments and especially living overseas, you miss out on a lot. So I thought, okay, I'll go home. I transferred to my unit out of Cheyenne, Wyoming, the Guard unit there, because that was the closest Guard air evac unit. Not every Guard unit has an air evac unit. And 2016, they said, we're pulling you back to the fire department because we got triple tapped for deployments and we need you in the fire department. And I was like, I haven't been in fire for like 4 years, but okay. And I'd heard that was a thing, but didn't really know it was a thing. And so I went on my deployment and I thought, it's Kuwait. It's going to be easy. It's a cake. Everyone says, oh, it's a cake deployment. It is. It's, you have a pool, you have a movie theater on base. It's a nice, expedition. And that was my mindset. I'm like, I'm going to make money. I'm going to work out. I'm going to, have fun. Right?
Yeah.
And a couple months in, my whole life was turned upside down. So met an individual, another NCO, and he was on the Red Horse task, so which is like kind of expeditionary for Air Force. And he, really like latched on to me, and I was just kind of like, whatever, didn't really take it super serious, but he was kind of like forcing the relationship. Long story short, I found out he was married, and I ended the relationship because I'm like, you jeopardized my career because I didn't know. I could have been charged with adultery because of this, you know what? So I was furious. It was like something in him. I mean, he flipped a switch and just became completely obsessed with stalk. People are like, how does somebody stalk you in the desert? It's very easy to. And it was to the point that I started telling the guys I worked with, I'm like, this guy is unhinged. He's clearly got mental issues, like, really scary stuff. I mean, because he was showing up everywhere I went. He was showing, he started accusing, at this point, I had become friends with his friends. And so he was like interrogating every time they hung out with me. What are you doing with her? Are you dating her? And they're like, dude, you're married. First of all, and it got really bad. So they're getting ready to go home. And it was literally the weekend before they were heading back to the States. And that's when he physically and sexually assaulted me. And it was horrifying. And luckily for me, I had been leading up to this, I had been seeing a chaplain regularly because I knew it was confidential. And I was so torn about what was happening, especially with the stalking. And I was like, because I was worried about getting charged with the adultery, even though I didn't know. I mean, it was just all these things, all these different pieces. And thank goodness for that chaplain, because he even was like, I'm concerned about your safety. I'm concerned about all of this. So when it happened, his roommate had become my best friend at that point, and I told him afterwards, and I mean, he was furious. And I said, if I come forward when you guys are still in the AOR, meaning even because they had to fly from Kuwait to Qatar to pick up more people, and I said, I'm not coming forward until he sets foot on American soil, because they would have absolutely brought him back for a court martial. And I'm like, this guy's insane. He'll kill me if I come forward. And I was fully convinced that he would have done that. And so luckily, his roommate was texting me the whole time. Okay, we're in Qatar. Okay, we're in Ireland. All right, we made it back to the States. Boom. I was like, okay, I'm coming forward. And so I went to the chaplain, and the one day I come forward, my chaplain's gone. I was so upset. He was at Al Jafra, or whatever the army base is, about an hour away from Ali Salim. And so they said, well, we have the head chaplain here, who's like I think he was a colonel or something. And I said, okay, I don't really know him, but, I need to report this. And I need to talk to a chaplain first, because, I had no idea what I was doing. And of course, terrified, even though I knew I was doing the right thing. So I go meet with him, and he starts to tell me how he had been prior security forces before becoming a chaplain. Security forces in the Air Forces are like an MP. So I start talking to him, and the first thing he says to me, and mind you, it's just him and I in a room behind closed doors. And I'm an NCO, but this is also a colonel. So I'm showing him respect, and his position and authority. And he looks at me and he says, well, if you were living your life right by God, this never would have happened. And I'm like, what? And I'm a Christian. I may stray at times, and I am definitely not a perfect Christian by any means. And I've struggled with my faith throughout the years. And I thought, how dare you? How dare you say that to me? And I'm like, so immediately I'm like shutting down already, okay? Because I'm going, so now you're God and you're judge. I'm like, what? This is not even appropriate for this conversation. I'm just telling you that this person is committing not only one, but multiple crimes. And you're telling me that it's my fault, basically, because I should have been living my life right by God for having a relationship with somebody else. Yeah.
Wow.
And so,
I'm so sorry, my friend.
so that was kind of the first, and I'm like, wow, should I, I started questioning myself. Should I, which I'm sure everyone has gone through who's been in that situation, any survivor. It's like, should I even be reporting this? Because this is a chaplain, the head chaplain at that, telling me this. And then he says, he's like, well, now I'm going to wear my old security forces hat. And I'm like, great. Well, why are you waiting till now to come report this? And I'm like, okay, this guy is a jerk completely. He's basically, not even basically, he is 100% already siding with my perpetrator and my attacker.
Right. Yeah.
And could you imagine if I was an airman, if I was lower ranking? I mean, I'm an NCO, so I'm not, I'm not a senior NCO, but I've been in for.
Yeah, you've been around the block. You've been in long enough to know how it goes.
And I'm like, wow. And so, I'm sitting there, and by this point, I'm pretty much on the verge. I mean, I'm like literally having a breakdown moment where I'm like crying and not fully, having a breakdown, but I'm like, okay, so I'm like, do I continue this? Do I move forward? If I'm already seeing this and I haven't even technically reported it yet? And I just said, you know what? No, because in my heart, it's like, I know what's right and I know what's wrong. Absolutely not. I don't give a crap if this guy's a colonel. Sorry, but no, with all due respect, screw you, dude. Like, no. I don't care what your position is. I don't care how dare you say not only the first thing, but then it's like, no, And I said, sir, I need to report this. This is not okay. This does not give him the right to put his hands on anybody. And you know that. You're an officer, for crying out loud. You're an officer. You're held to an even higher standard than us enlisted. And you're a colonel, you know? And so he's like, well, just total jerk. I'm like, I need security forces. I need to report this. And so I am taken down, to meet with security forces. And it was so crazy because in that moment, even as I'm reporting it, I still didn't fully comprehend to where we were at because I start telling them the story, right? I start telling them everything that's led up to this chain of events. And I'm more focused on, okay, this guy was married and lied about it and the physical assault. Like that's what my brain did. It was protecting me so much that it was like not even acknowledging that I had been sexually assaulted. It was like, boop. And so I'm telling this security forces member what happened. And the moment I told them about how he had basically blocked me in the bathroom when all this happened, he was like, shut it down. Okay, I have to stop you right there. And I was like, I still didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you shut it down? What happened? And I'm like, did I do something wrong? And he was like, ma'am, I have to involve SARC. I need to get a victim's advocate here. And I'm like, SARC? I mean, again, even then my brain, right, is like fully just pretending like none of that happened. And he was like, this guy tried to full on force himself. If not, it was like he was explaining it to a child. Cause I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And right when he said, of course I start panicking. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, Sark's. And then he left. He's like, can you wait here? I was in a secure room, and he went to call the victim's advocate and SARC and get them down. And that's when I really started processing everything and going, holy crap, he's right. Like, how have I been completely in denial about this aspect? Like, it didn't really click until that moment. And unfortunately, which I'll get into later on kind of in my story, but this was not my first sexual assault. And so 1000%, that was my brain with all the trauma I had endured years ago, completely just acting like it wasn't that big of a deal because it was doing its best to protect me, right?
Right.
So again, in my healing journey, it was so profound to see how even at that time I had completely blocked it out and was still like not acknowledging that I had been sexually assaulted. So he and it was crazy, but that's what happens when you have trauma and years of trauma, and PTSD, all those things, right? So he comes.
Your brain starts putting stuff in little boxes. I'll deal with that. It's like such a protective.
It is. Our
mechanism.
brains are and that's part of the reason why I do what I do with the work that I've gotten into in coaching. Our brains are incredibly brilliant, obviously, but they're so archaic for that fact, because it's literally, you think about caveman era, like it was literally fight or flight. You didn't have, when you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, but we don't have that anymore. So our brain perceives something that's it's like a computer, like data. So it's like taking in that input and then it's saying, oh, I recognize this from something from before, alert, and it shuts everything down because it does that to protect us. And that's absolutely what happened. That's why I couldn't even recognize what had happened at that moment. It's like I knew it, but I just kind of filed it way back into the abyss of my mind. And so, yeah, really, that's the best way to put it. So he comes, so long story short, I get this reported, and OSI, it's a big deal. OSI is investigating. I'm having to meet with them. They start interviewing my coworkers, because they're like, they wanted to know, like, okay, did you see the dynamic of this relationship? Did you see anything? They're doing their job. Meanwhile, I'm the NCOIC. I'm NCO in command of 911 dispatch operations and logistics management for the entire fire department. I've been pulled off a truck and put on a desk position for 2 huge full-time jobs in one. So I had a very stressful job. I had torn my rotator cuff, broken my tailbone, like all at the same time from this whole situation. And still leading my airmen, still supervising and going to school to finish my degree. So, I was literally in survival mode and like barely surviving because I was angry, and to me, I'm like, why would you can't send me home? Am I really that important that you need to keep me here? So they kept me there for the full 6 months throughout this entire everything, wouldn't send me home. And there's nothing I could do. I just had to get through it. Luckily, I had phenomenal leadership in my deployed location. I had amazing men that I worked for as my supervisor, my deputy chief, my fire chief, my commander. She was amazing as well. They fully supported me. They were like, whatever you need. I could not have asked for better leadership. And they went to bat for me on numerous occasions. So I come home, and of course, trying to adjust from any deployment, but this deployment, I mean, I did not really even know how bad I was, because I come home and of course, first thing is, all right, let's get your shoulder situation. I had to have shoulder surgery because I tore my rotator cuff. And a full thickness tear. So I'm dealing with that, and I have a special victims counsel. He's, because it's still ongoing when I get home. He's dealing with this guy, his command, his JAG, everything from his home base. So they come to me right after I have surgery, and they're like, okay, which now, thank goodness, they've gotten rid. So they turned it into a command-directed investigation after OSI did their whole thing, put the whole thing together. He should have been court-martialed. His commander took over the whole thing, command-directed investigation, instead of court-martialing this guy. They knew what they were doing at the time. I mean, I didn't understand because I'd never been through something like that. So we're dealing with his, like I said, his commander, his first sergeant, JAG for the wing, the commander of the wing, I mean, everything. And then my lawyer, who was a major at the time. And they come to me and they're like, okay, his commander has decided to give him an Article 128 for physical assault, a 134 for adultery, and threw the 120 out, which is sexual assault. Threw it out completely. Would not even charge him with it. And I'm like, say what? Say what?
So he got charged with physical assault
and adultery.
He got charged with adultery, which they actually, the person who assaulted me went to jail for adultery.
Yeah.
But not sexual assault.
So would not even charge him with an Article 120 because they knew he would have been court-martialed. They knew it would have been dishonorable discharge, immediate, pack your crap and get out. So his commander knew what he was doing. He 1000% protected this guy.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And then they have the audacity to come to my lawyer and say, well, ask her what kind of punishment she wants to see have happen. And I'm like, why? At this point, why do you even care? You're not even charging him with sexual assault. I mean, let's be honest. Like, what's the point? And I'm like, this is just a slap in the face. And so I told my lawyer, I was like, this is what we deal with. And he's a special victims counsel. He deals with this all the time. So I said, okay, he's a tech sergeant. He's an E6. And so in the Air Force, you have to test as you get higher into, once you pass E5, well, you test for E5 and you test for E6. The lower ranks, you don't have to test. It's just years, time in service, all that. So he had made tech sergeant his very last testing cycle right before he deployed. So I knew he was high. He was at 15 years. So he was higher tenure. And I'm like, perfect. Let's get him demoted to an E5. He'll get kicked out under higher tenure. Because if he's back down to an E5 at 15 years, automatically he can't be in anymore. Problem solved. This guy should not be in the military. I mean, he's a predator. And so my lawyer's like, I fully agree. So he goes to their JAG, because it was his JAG that had contacted my lawyer. JAG there comes back like within a day. And so I knew it was not good because they don't ever get back that fast. And my lawyer's like, well, do you want to hear the good news or the bad news? I'm like, I'm sure it's all bad, so just tell me. And he said his commander went ahead and just chose to discipline him without waiting for the JAG to come back. And I'm like, why did he even ask what my... So his commander, sorry. And I'm like, I guess I'm really not surprised. But interestingly enough, he chose to give him that same punishment of demoting him with a suspension. So he was protected. So yeah, they demoted him with a suspended, whatever, I don't know the exact lingo, but he protected him from being kicked out under that suspension for 6 months.
Yeah. This is why women don't report.
Exactly.
And the betrayal of your commander, it's your commander too. He's his commander most of the time.
We had different commands, but still.
Right.
Yeah. He's still a commander. Right.
They protect the perpetrator instead of the victim.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're my commander. If that's the
I mean, he,
And as officers,
yeah.
they take a whole different oath than we
Oh,
do.
absolutely. They're
And
charged with, I mean, they are supposed to take care of their people.
yeah,
And he is taking care of, and to me, I'm like, almost in a, people, it's funny because people talk about conspiracy theories, and I'm like, I totally, almost like, what did he have on you for you to just continually protect this guy? Because then I did some digging, and his people, his troops, even the guy that assaulted me, started messaging me on Facebook. They were like, this guy is a scumbag, he is a POS, he's been in trouble. In the Air Force, he had a UIF. A UIF is an unfavorable information file, which means something you've done has gone on permanent record. He wasn't even supposed to deploy. The guy got in trouble, he had a UIF, and his commander let him deploy like that. And then he does this, and you still protect him.
Since I started Shield of Sisters, I get a lot of articles and I hear a lot of stories, and it amazes me. We have a major right now who's on 63 counts of assault.
I think I
63
saw
counts.
that. That was the recent,
Yeah.
oh yeah. The one who he was like going into the barracks or something and like attack.
No, that's a different one. This is a major. That was an enlisted guy.
Oh, okay. Right.
This is a major. Granted, most of them were civilians that he assaulted, but they knew this and they kept them. So we're going to end this episode and we're going to come back to another because I know you have more story and I want to tell everyone about the amazing things you do now and how you've overcome the trauma of what happened to you. And I think it's important for people to know that just because you've been assaulted, just because you have this trauma in your life, doesn't mean you can't live a thriving, fulfilling life.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back to a new episode and talk about it from there.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We'd like to thank the members of our Founders Circle, Superbio, Walmart, USAA, Sauk County Veterans Service Office, National Electrical Contractors Association, and Julie Norton. Ask us how you can be a member of the Founders Circle today.